Where is the magic in life for you?
In art, in human connection, in the people I love, in laughter and creating something you're proud of. There's so much. Today, I'll say, definitely I'll focus it on the art. There's so much magic in art. It's so good to see you in person.
I know. Look at this place. This is like, I don't know, this is some kind of magic dreamscape overlooking
Yeah.
New York. Did you ever think you'd spend as much time in New York when you were a kid?
I love, being so close to theater. When I used to come visit with my mom when I was little and my best friend Erin, we would see as many shows as we could every weekend. We would go to dinner and a show, or a matinee and then dinner and a show, and it was just the best. I mean, New York energy is so different, you know?
They're great memories as well, getting to spend time with your parents at an age where you get to kind of enjoy that before your identity takes over and New York becomes yours, it's kind of theirs.
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite memories about the time you spent with your mum before you decided to go out on your own and ended up here?
Just her support, even from such a young age. She would fly me in from Boca to audition for Broadway shows, and, you know, I believed in it, so she supported me, and she never pushed me. She always was just kind of very supportive.
And it's really happening right now. I mean, that must be extra specially sweet for you to have done so much work and completed this, you know, era with Wicked.
Yeah.
To be able to kind of trace it back to that moment. Because I'm sure she's super proud of everything that you've achieved, and the music is a big part of that. But for her to know that those trips to New York and those trips to Broadway and those matinees kind of led you back to that place in a strange way.
It's nice. It's strange, but also not. It feels so full circle. It feels like home. It feels like pieces of the puzzle that have always been there finding their way back again, and just a nice balance of everything. It's beautiful. I hope you love it. I'm excited for you to see it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. And I was excited to know you were taking part in doing it. And it kind of leads us to this era for you as the artist that we know, or we knew. I feel like this album is a whole new step forward creatively for you, not just in terms of writing and producing the music, and the performance on it is incredible, but I get it. Like, I get the concept. Like, I get it.
Thank you.
And when I first listened to the album, I did that thing where I started to attribute all of these words and songs and ideas to the person. And then I was like, wait a minute, there's space and freedom to write within a concept, to push it even further. Is that kind of part of what motivated you to want to do it in a more conceptual way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's very protective and observant and caring of you to say. I think there's such a freedom within art in general, because you really can pull from anywhere. You can pull from your truth, you can pull from a concept, you can pull from a film, from a story you're telling, from a story about a relationship that a friend told you, from, you know, art is really, it can come from anywhere. Yeah, finding a home in Eternal Sunshine was a lovely costume to wear, I think, for this project.
Because when we hear songs now, I think, you know, we jump on the timelines and we start attributing all of these things, and then they don't become songs anymore. They become lines and headlines and lyrics and words, and they stop being songs. And it's almost become kind of treacherous, I think, to tell the truth in music, because it stops being about the music so quickly.
I think it depends where you look, though. I really do think that, yes, that is there, and that kind of noise has always been there in certain ways, in different ways, and I think now with social media it's definitely more present or more available. Also, I do think that there are so many more people that are just able to listen to the music and take what they need from it, what they need to hear, what they need to heal, you know, what resonates with them. I think there are more people that are able to do that than the other, or maybe that's me being eternal sunshine, ignorance is bliss.
No, you're not being idealistic at all. The access is far greater, but you said it beautifully there. As long as we take what we need from it.
Right, because it's no longer mine, really. It's for you. So if I send it to a friend and they have their own experience with it, or they take from it a new meaning that I didn't even consider when writing it. That's, the beauty of it. It's not really mine anymore.
That's why that's when it clicked for me when I was listening to it, and I thought, okay, it starts with a question and it ends with an answer.
Yes.
Right? The question is, how do I know if I'm in the right relationship, if I've found the right person? And it ends with the most timeless piece of advice that anyone with any wisdom will give you, which is, don't forget about the little things. When did you realize that the album had that question, but you also had the answer at the end?
Honestly, I didn't realize it until I found the voice note. I knew Ordinary Things was the end of the album. I was like, this is the last song. But I wonder how I can put that button on it and have it land emotionally the way that I feel it can. And how can I answer the question? I always record my Nona when I'm with her because you never know what she's going to say. And she's the most hilarious person in the world. And I had this 30-minute voice note of her and her friend Shirley talking. And it was just right smack in the middle of it. And I said, oh my God, that's the answer.
What did you hear in your laughter after? Because your laughter is the last thing you hear on the record.
Yeah.
And I wondered what that laugh means to you listening to it now.
Well, my own laugh means to me, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a little bit of, wow, our loved ones, our friends and our family have the ability to instantly just sort of soothe and calm and simplify things that are so complicated and heavy at times. Like they just have that instant ability sometimes.
How much did kind of stepping away from the sort of day-to-day or project-to-project type routine of releasing a record, and I know you didn't necessarily tour positions the way you had done in the past, but still it felt like you were moving with regularity, and getting to focus on Wicked, did it kind of help break the spell a little bit in terms of how you wanted to come back and start a record?
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, I tried to put music as far from my brain as humanly possible while I was working on Wicked, because I think in order to fully give myself to Glinda, I needed to really put that in a box in a big way. Everything from the way I sing to the way I speak, everything kind of had to be different for a long time so that I could be fully present in it. It also really allowed for coming back to it to feel so much more special and so much more enjoyable. Yeah, I learned a lot about, I don't know. I had a very interesting relationship to music before I left for Wicked. I think that the time away was really healing. And I love, it's so interesting because I came back and I've loved every minute of making this album, the videos, rehearsing, putting the rollout together, doing the photo shoots, doing every single part of it more than ever before in my life. I've been able to be so much more present and enjoy it and savor it this time in a way that I don't think I was able to before.
It must have felt almost like you were working in secret, which I don't think it must be hard to feel that way when your last album was hugely successful. You came off a tour and everyone's still dialed into your frequency. What were those days like when you were working on your own? Because I know that you obviously worked with Max Martin and with Ilya, which is great, but I'm also really interested in that time you spent just on your own, just figuring out what the songs meant to you and how you were going to construct them and produce them.
Well, it was very vulnerable. I mean, I had this amazing trip in September that was just me and Max, and we started these little seedling ideas, and we had a collection of beats that we liked and we wanted to expand upon, and he left me with a big folder. I would come in and try things and FaceTime when I was done and be like, what do you think? Is this fine? I don't know. And, it was a very vulnerable but really fun experience. I don't know. It was really special. And then, of course, Max came back and we had so much fun, and Ilya joined as well. And Shintaro was sending beats from afar too. So that's kind of how it started. I think the first two things that I wrote were End of the World and Eternal Sunshine. So those are both Shintaro's as well. So
and you knew the concept of that moment. Eternal Sunshine came out because that was ultimately where it was going to add up to the idea.
I actually don't remember when it clicked to me that was what was happening. But yeah.
End of the world is such an interesting way to start the record, and I think like when is the world not coming to an end? I mean, at least that's how it feels for everybody, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like we sure make a real habit of taking a look at even the good things in our life and looking just past them at what could possibly go wrong. You know, do you catastrophize things as much as anybody else, you know, when it comes to life?
I try not to catastrophize. I try to stay present. I think that's a lot of our work as human beings, is to not live in the past or in the future, but to try and just be right here and focus on the present. But of course, there's that hovering dread of what could happen.
I think anxiety is just a byproduct
Yeah.
of being alive. I actually think it's not something that you get afflicted with. I think it's
Yeah.
something you learn to live with or acknowledge.
You have to learn to live
You have
with
to
it.
learn
You
to
have
live
to
with
learn
it.
what tools work for you and
100%.
how to befriend it, how to shine a light on all your little monsters and see them and look at them and say,
Yeah.
okay, I see you.
Yeah.
How can we live together? How can we survive together? How can we get through what we need to get through and work on this together, you know?
Do you still meditate?
I do every day.
What's the trick? What's the secret? Because
There
I
isn't, I mean, there really isn't.
struggle with it. It's one of the only things I can do everything else, but that I just
Are you judging your performance? Are you saying, okay, my mind is jumping around, I'm not doing a good job?
I'm
Are you
marking myself at the end of every
I'm
meditation
serious. That's what
session.
most people say to me. They're like,
little
okay,
bit.
I don't think I'm good at it. I'm like, well, doing it at all is good at it. I mean, you
Yeah.
really can't judge yourself. That's a good place to start. Just doing it is great. As David G would say, it's all a part of the meditation. So if a phone rings, if a dog barks,
Yeah.
it was meant to happen. It's a part of the meditation.
How do you apply it to your creative energy? Like, do you, when you're in a creative space, sometimes do songs come from that experience? I guess is my question.
I don't think so. I think taking care of your brain as much as possible is always productive. I think it definitely helped me more with acting than I can see it being present when I'm doing music, but I think it helps everything. That's always like daunting, is when you have been rehearsing something for months and months and months, and then you have that one scene, that one day, you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, today's the day that has to be there. So you can't get in your own way.
And how do you judge yourself differently, if you judge yourself at all from that position, or at least approach it from a point of view of like of self-awareness? Because with music, at the end of the day, it's a very personal expression from within. But on set, I'd imagine if you're looking back at a take or the rushes, it must be hard not to look at yourself differently, at least judge your performance differently, and maybe be harder on yourself in that sense.
I try to not really do much of that with acting or with Wicked in particular, because I mean, I loved to see stuff because it was exciting to take a peek every now and then and see whatever, but I just didn't want to be too aware or conscious of, you know, I just kind of wanted to be living in her, and not aware of what that looks like.
Yeah, totally. And you have to trust the director and trust the people on set too.
Yeah.
Therefore, they got what they need, right?
Yeah, totally. I think could be a little distracting.
Was there a song that when you were working on this album that kind of presented itself with no delay and no obstruction whatsoever, and it just fell out of the magic space for you?
Something really beautiful about this writing process was that if it was taking too long, or if it became too mathematic, or if it became too, we're drilling this pre-chorus to get the right thing, we kind of would bounce around or try a different idea or come back to it and whatever, and just do melody passes until it just fell out. So I kind of do feel like everything fell into place that way with this album, just sort of organically. And
Because it was fast, right? You did it quickly.
it was fast, but it wasn't too fast. I think it was like 3.5 months.
I don't know how people leave the studio. I mean, I can imagine it's just such a rewarding place to be, that to
Yeah.
actually execute on something must be one of the hardest things.
Like how they let to
Letting it go.
Yeah.
Like I thought that must be where the emotion was coming from. I saw some of the videos of you playing it for people and I could see how you were just trying to hold it together. But is that really
I'm
what...
a Cancer. It's all very emotional.
Yeah, I can imagine that was kind of part of what was going through. Will you tell me what was going through your mind when you first started to play it to people and the emotion caught you off guard?
I think I've been doing this a long time with the same team from Republic Records, and I love them all so much. You know how many times I've called Monty and Wendy and Joe and Avery and Rappo and Donna to hear a record, to hear a song. This is my 7th time. It's just a long time to be doing this, and I think this is the first time that I have felt truly present for it and able to enjoy it the way that we were talking about before. So that was emotional, you know? It was just like a beautiful thing to see these faces of people that I love and have worked with and survived so much with for so long.
Yeah.
And this is like our first time that we've done this, that it's felt this way for me, and also that I've been able to give my all to it this way, even to do like interviews and stuff. I don't really do that kind of stuff, but I'm like excited to. Does that make sense? I'm excited. I'm like proud and grateful, and I feel like, oh my goodness, what a gift to be able to make this art. And for so long, I think I was in hiding from it, hiding from my success or from what comes with it. And it was really impacting my ability to be able to love what I do for a long time. Oh my God, I don't want to get choked up, but yeah, it was really making me resentful, I think, for a little bit of time. And I don't feel that way anymore.
I'm so
and I
happy
feel like I'm able
to hear
to let go of that
Yeah.
and enjoy it. And I feel really proud and grateful for that. Sorry to like go there, but it feels very different. I think that's why I was so choked up, even just playing them the songs, because I was like, whoa, this feels so different this time.
What was really hard for us as fans was to see this thing that you were giving to us as a gift, to your point, feel like it was soundtracking these tough times. And I wouldn't have blamed you if you hadn't made a record for a long time.
I think between like that, the unpredictability of what we were just discussing, versus also like the game of it all, was something that when I started making music when I was young, I didn't really expect that or sign up for that. Like I just loved music. I didn't know it had to be a game. I didn't know people were gonna try to pit me against people I love. I didn't know that, you know, it was gonna do such strange things. And I think I was very young and processing all of that. I kind of married that to music in my head for a while. I was like, oh, well, I can't continue doing that.
I was talking to someone else who's made an album which is deeply rooted in Love Lost very recently. And I made the observation that even though the album goes through all of these different experiences of losing someone that you care about, it actually still was a love album to me. Because, you know...
This feels very much like that.
Yeah, it does to me. There's not
to me.
It doesn't just have to be an everlasting love story. Love is complicated.
Showcasing both sides of it is kind of what I tried my very best to balance in the music is, you know, this feeling can be true and this feeling can also be true simultaneously. And I think that's something that we can ignore sometimes.
You know what really helps you face it down is Saturn's Return.
Oh, yeah.
I remember mine super well.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. And it's a unique experience because it's almost a mathematically perfect equation, but is unique to everybody else. It's like one of those things that is a planetary alignment that really should put us all in some grid, but it's not like that. It's super individual and it applies itself like magic to everyone's life. So, Ari, what was your Saturn's Return like?
Oh my gosh. My Saturn return, what was it like? It was it was pretty chill, nothing changed. Pretty uneventful.
Seriously?
Pretty uneventful. Nothing, I can't think of a thing that changed about my life.
You don't have to go into specifics, but from a personal level, how did you grow?
In all seriousness, I think I kind of learned that I wasn't really listening to myself in a lot of areas where I could have been. It's like my nervous system was screaming at me to make certain changes for a long time, but I think I was kind of a person who wasn't listening. I don't know. I tried to listen to it more.
It's an interesting time in your life because it applies itself to every aspect, and I think we make a lot of it about relationships and a lot of it about self, but...
Oh no, it's so much about your relationship to yourself.
Yeah.
That's mainly what I mean.
Yeah.
Like for me, I was like, oh, I'm not listening to myself. I need to start listening to why am I doing this? You know, it's not protective to ignore these feelings. It's actually counterproductive. It's actually more harmful to not.
Supernatural as a song, I love. It's one of those moments that to me kind of comes out and is an immediate comforting and very visceral moment. But I love the sentiment of supernatural and the idea of what it means. What is most magic about life to you? Where is the magic in life for you?
In art, in human connection, in the people I love, in laughter and creating something you're proud of. There's so much. Today, I'll say, definitely, I'll focus it on the art. There's so much magic in art.
Do you remind yourself more often than not throughout the day to appreciate where you stand?
Absolutely. I think the only possible way to survive is with gratitude, is to stay rooted in gratitude and sort of be thankful every day for everything that's so easily taken away. And it's so easy to get wrapped up in negativity or what, challenges are here in the day.
It's time to get into this kind of concept a little more because, for me at least, because I love the film and I recognize now that there is a thread from the movie, not a literal sense, but just the feeling of the movie that goes through the record. What prompted you to link this album to the film, if it is that literal?
I think the movie is so beloved because so many people can relate to knowing that something isn't right, but loving so much and wanting to stay and wanting to figure it out, and that cycle that can happen in the film. I think that's why the film is so beloved, is because so many people can relate to it. And I think it kind of fell into place that these songs had little tidbits of that theme.
Do you remember the first time you watched it?
Inspired by it. I was really young. I'm a massive Jim Carrey fan. I don't know if you know this, but my first screen name was Jim Carrey Fan 42. So I was definitely very young.
Yeah.
It's always been a favorite of mine.
What's it been like meeting him?
Thrilling. He's even better. You know how sometimes you get nervous to meet your people because you never know how they're going to be and it's very scary? He couldn't be better. I love him so much more after meeting him and working with him on Kidding.
What's Max Martin like? I just want to meet him. He's like the biggest mystery, the most successful pop producer.
He just turned into an absolute child. That was my favorite thing. What's Max Martin like? No, he's the best person in the world. I think who he is who he is as a human being, and the fact that like his success and all that he's done hasn't at all inflated his ego or his humanness. Like, he's just the coolest guy ever. He's so nice. He's kind to every single person he encounters.
And he's nurturing in the studio. Like, how does he get the truth? Like, how does he get those performances and that truth out and yet make it feel like it's my life? He's very thoughtful when it comes to things like that, because usually I'll go too far. Like, I'll spill way too, I'll be way too, I like to write like no one's ever going to hear it, ever. And then sometimes I want to dial it back or change things or redo things. And he's got such an amazing ability to ride that balance and know what people need to hear and what I need to say too. Like, he'll stand up for me. He'll be like, no, you deserve to say that. And he'll also know that, like, hey, you can say that in a way that's not going to distract people from the song. 100%. Or he'll be like, this is more aligned with the Ari. You know what I mean? He's amazing. But we had such an amazing and therapeutic time together. We walked to work together every day. You did? Yeah, we'd walk on the High Line. It was so fun. Long days too. Yeah. And then we'd like have a glass of wine and sit there and listen to what we did and like laugh, and it was just the best. Can you disappear here? Can you walk the High Line and just disappear? Literally anywhere in New York. It's so funny. It's really funny. I just walk around if I have like a little beanie or hat, and I love it. I need it. Like, and that's what I loved about London so much, was I got to do that every single weekend. And it's nice to just be able to explore and roam around. And it's New York. Everyone lives in New York. Everyone's used to seeing people in New York. I think about True Story, and what I love about that song is how playful it is and how it leans into the idea of like what is real and what's not. Like, you called it True Story, but I actually not sure if it is. It's an untrue story based on all untrue events. Exactly. It sets up The Boy Is Mine, obviously. It's kind of like, okay, I'll play the bad girl. Now here's your bad girl anthem. That's why they're in that order on the track list. The Boy Is Mine. The original is a classic. Yes, I love that song. I've always like wanted to reimagine that song in some kind of way. Why on this album? Where were you when you came up with the idea of wanting to add to that? When I saw my fans' reaction to Fantasize, because they love it so much. So this one was an extension of that.
In a way, I think I kind of was like, this is a very bad idea, I think, but there is a large group of my fans that really, they do love a bad girl anthem, and this is kind of, I think, an elevated version of that.
It's kind of pop's job to some degree to be provocateur.
Right, and to be an escape in some way. But yeah, I thank you. I'm glad that you love it.
Did you work on that one on your own as well, or did you work on?
No, that was Max and I. That was our first trip. That was one of the first ideas that we started. Everything fell into place with that tempo change, though.
Yeah.
And once he did that, I was like, oh, this is a problem.
Did it feel like the album was really reality when a song like that shows up? It's like, okay, now I've got to find a bunch to go around it because it can't just sit on its own.
Yeah, the first that Max and I did together was Don't Want to Break Up Again. And the second we did together was The Boy Is Mine. And once we had those, we kind of couldn't believe that they happened so quickly. And we were just kind of like, oh, we might be making something.
You know, when I listen to your vocals on the record, and obviously being a fan of you as a performer as well as a writer and a producer and an artist in general, is that hearing you sing often, I get to explore with you your range and find where you can take it emotionally. Yet on this record, I feel like you, and I don't know if it was on purpose, I'd love to get your take on it, but the performance feels like you chose those moments very deliberately, and a lot of the time you just let the writing kind of be at the forefront.
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually super intentional. I love to be discerning with how much I want to go there vocally. It's one of my favorite things is to watch girls just like sing down. But I kind of am very discerning with what moments I decide to go there.
We Can't Be Friends on that song, which is kind of like a sort of classic sort of emotive dance floor moment where you're sort of dancing to something.
Yes.
And I can't quite tell whether it's sort of final or it's flirty, and maybe that's the point about that song as to whether or not it's like, well, we can't be friends, or it's like, we can never be friends. How does it fit into the concept overall?
It fits the concept, I think, in a different way for me than it does for most of my friends and most of my family and people who have listened, and they all sort of interpret it a little bit differently, which I love about that song because I think it can be applied to any kind of relationship, really. Again, especially when you see the video, I think you'll understand the importance of it, especially being the second single as well. The video that we made for We Can't Be Friends really, to me, is the album in a video.
What do you value in friendship? What do you love about your friends the most?
Oh my gosh, just having such a safe space in them. Like, no matter what is happening, I feel so incredibly fine because of the people that I have in my life. I know they would never... You know what I mean? They're just the best. I love them. They're right about everything. They're brilliant. What about you?
For me, what I love about my friends, honesty.
Oh, yeah.
Safety.
Holding up the mirror. They're the best at that.
But they also have helped me understand the things I was most scared about myself and accept them over time.
Right.
Like, to give me a place of honesty where I can talk to them, and then by verbalizing those fears, I'm not so afraid of them anymore. And I think that's kind of leads me to my favorite song on the record, which is Imperfect for You. Because I think it's a beautiful tribute to that experience.
It's one of my favorites as well. I think my top 3 are We Can't Be Friends, Imperfect for You, and Eternal Sunshine. But I think the most beautiful thing about Imperfect for You is that we all know those people that we feel that way about and that we are so lucky to have because they see it all, they hold space for it all, and it fits in their imperfections too. Like, we're so lucky to have friends, family, loved ones that are just so accepting and real with us no matter what. It's like such an important song in my opinion because we live in a time where everything is boiled down, but that song kind of demands room for nuance and humanness and complexity that we're so used to like being stripped of these days.
Will you find the time and have the energy to want to tour this album?
I miss doing shows. I really do. If there's a chance to in between the Wickeds or right after the Wickeds, I will, of course, do my best to do it. I think I just have to sort of, like my relationship to music, I have to redefine my relationship to doing shows because I think that's something that suffered a lot as well because of my own trauma, my own sort of like lack of boundaries when I was younger. I think it allowed for me to sort of have an anxious association with it. But I think that was where I was. So being here now and kind of, I look forward to it. I'm excited to redefine my relationship to touring and to doing shows when time allows. But it is something that I'm like, yes, I would love to. I just don't know when.
I appreciate that this album to me is a really great example of what happens when somebody takes the concept of what's going on internally and goes beyond that and builds a world that's bigger than just your own personal experience. That's what concept are. And I think you've done an incredible job. I appreciate you seeing this through.
Thank you.